Must admit, I sometimes find the words of Jesus a bit baffling as well as challenging. Of course, the first reading today from the book of Wisdom essentially tells me not to worry about it. Who can know God's counsel, or who can conceive what the Lord intends? The writer then went on to say that we mortals are timid and unsure. And further, he noted that our material concerns, taking care of our bodies, providing shelter, are enough of a problem and limit our ability to fully understand the ways of God. Nevertheless, God, in coming to dwell in the flesh, in Jesus, certainly expressed his will clearly, but the full measure of understanding is what sometimes lags behind. Today's gospel continues in what has been a series of rather challenging words from Jesus for those who would choose to follow him, to be his disciples. And in today's gospel, Jesus spoke of those that we should be willing to hate. Now, the commentators tell us that a better word than hate, in reference to the attitude one must have toward family and even one's own life, the better word is love less. It's a statement about priorities. It's a statement about which of all our relationships must be most important. It is our relationship with God and Jesus Christ. This relationship includes the taking up of a cross, the willingness to make self-sacrifices in order to follow the gospel, to be faithful to Jesus' teaching. And so, Jesus warned that those who would choose to follow him must be sure they have the resources to complete the task. Of course, the irony is that the resources are supplied. The resources of grace are given by Jesus. Those resources of grace do require the disciple to have faith, to believe in the truth of what Jesus says. But even that resource, faith, is presented as a gift. Faith is a gift that reaches out and within and invites us to trust in the promises of Jesus Christ. So why would someone take up the challenge of following Jesus? We find the answer in the words of St. Peter when many of Jesus' listeners could not accept his teaching on the Eucharist and that he would give them his flesh and blood as food and drink, and they left him, and he asked the apostles if they too would leave. Well, Peter said, Lord, to whom can we go? You have the words of eternal life. And it isn't only about the totally delayed gratification of heaven. Although no happiness on earth will equal the happiness of seeing God face to face in heaven, the life that is eternal, the life of grace, is begun as a foretaste here on earth. When we do accept the crosses, the opportunities for sacrifice, we will inevitably, in various ways, experience consolation and joy in the midst of the crosses. Let's go back to the litany of what we must be prepared to hate or love less. When one looks at the entirety of the gospel, the entirety of what God has revealed, we know he calls us to love those very people. We are called to honor father and mother. Spouses are to live in the oneness described in Genesis, oneness requiring mutual love and sacrifice. The mutual giving and receiving in marriage is work, but it is filled with blessing. Of course, parents must love their children and nurture them to become productive adults. Even our very lives are to be loved and to be treated well. God made us in his image to work and produce, to fill and subdue the earth. The key to discipleship is that our love of God in Jesus Christ must be greater than love of others and love of life itself. And our commitment to him must be our priority. True discipleship will strengthen our ability to love others and our lives in the correct way. And the correct way is one that turns sacrifice and crosses into the glorification of God. And the correct way is one that will provide consolation, blessing, and joy when we see the fruit that can be born in others because of our love for them It's enriched by our greater relationship with Jesus Christ. There's a very practical challenge in having our relationship with Christ have a priority over relationship with others and even ourselves. Human relationships are more tangible. We see, touch, speak, and hear those people. Our relationship with Jesus Christ is seemingly more elusive. It gets into the area addressed in our first reading, the unknowable mind of God. That's where grace comes in. That is where that mysterious intrusion of the heart and mind of God into our hearts and minds must be sought. And our Catholic faith provides tangible experiences to dispose ourselves to that grace. That's what the sacraments are all about. That's what prayer, making use of the scriptures and the prayers of our tradition, are all about. And that's what our weekly gathering here for the holy sacrifice of the Mass is all about. Here, we do encounter Jesus Christ in a spoken word and in sacrament, and in the fellowship of other real, living people, likewise seeking to encounter Jesus Christ and be touched by grace.